Howdy, folks. Welcome to our January 2022, can I say it, edition of Cattle Trails Showcase. I'm Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate. Mighty glad to be your host. A happy new year to you, and we appreciate you joining us. Today, we are zooming to Fort Worth, where we're going to visit what is said to be one of the finest and most focused collections of Western art in America. So we're excited about that. Our regular viewers know that we like to open our program with a Western trivia question. We invite you to put your answer in the chat. Last month, we asked this question. On the old TV show Gunsmoke, what was the name of Marshal Dillon's first deputy? And many of you knew that that was Chester, played by Dennis Weaver. So our question for today is, what was the name of Marshal Dillon's last deputy? What was the name of the character and who played that character on Gunsmoke as Marshal Dillon's last deputy? He ended up being a major character for the last years of the show. The purpose of the Cattle Trails Showcase is to continually highlight the communities, historical elements, museums, and other attractions along the Chisholm or the Western Trail. This showcase is brought to you by the International Chisholm Trail Association, of which Dennis Katzenmeyer is president, Michael Grauer is vice president, Nancy Lawrence is secretary, and Mary Lou Rivers is treasurer. And Lonnie Steben is our showcase chair. Today, we are zooming along the Chisholm Trail to Fort Worth, Texas, and the Sid Richardson Museum. And we're joined by the museum executive director, Scott Winterroad. And we're honored to have Scott with us. Our friend, Steve Myers, took me to the Sid Richardson Museum a couple of years ago. I was mightily impressed. And our own Michael Grauer was a speaker there at the museum last spring. And so we love the connections. Native of Fort Worth, Scott Winterroad holds a master's degree in art education and certificate in art museum education from the University of North Texas. Scott is a leader in art museum education. He served as past program chair for the Museum Education Roundtable. In 2014, he was awarded Art Museum Educator of the Year for the Western Division of the National Art Education Association. His career spans some 26 years of working for the finest art museums in America, including the Amon Carter Museum, the Dallas Museum of Art, the Meadows Museum at Southern Methodist University, and the J. Paul Getty Museum in Los Angeles, California. He's himself a talented artist focusing on watercolor and print. Scott, welcome. Please tell us about the Sid Richardson Museum.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. That was great. So nice to hear. I want to welcome you all to the Sid virtually today and to walk you through a little bit about us. So first, I'll begin by telling you where we're at. I think. But of course, my PowerPoint. Oh, well, let me share the PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. Now we're going to be in good shape.
There we go.
All right, much better. Now let's pray it moves forward because it's not, of course. Okay, hold on one sec. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So we are located in downtown Fort Worth, and we're just steps away from Sundance Square. And as you can also see right there on Sundance Square is the Chisholm Trail mural. And so it's wonderful to be part of the downtown area and part of the downtown and the history of Fort Worth and our fine Western heritage and culture here in Fort Worth. I don't know if you all are aware, but today is the first day of the stock show. So the Fort Worth Stock Show starts today. So it's a big deal for us around here. And we have a new installation we're opening today in honor of that as well that I'll talk to you about as we go along. I wanted to also just mention my predecessor, Mary Burke, who was the director before me, put together an exhibition in 2017 for the 150th anniversary of the Chisholm Trail. And so it was an opportunity to bring in books and maps and other objects that relate to the history of the trail in relation to our wonderful collection of Western paintings. And I'm primarily just going to talk a bit about our history. It's a very exciting year for us in 2022 because we are 40 years old this year. We opened in 1982. As you can see, we have this rather austere facade back then. with no name for the museum in big letters. I first visited the museum in the early 1990s when I was working at the Amon Carter and getting to know their Western art collection. And so I used to spend time here at the Sid a lot when I was a young man, getting to know Western art and learning more about Remington and Russell at that time. The galleries used to be really just dedicated to showing everything in the collection. We had about 100 works that we kept most of those works on view. And so it's a very tight collection, a very small collection, but a very refined collection that features the works primarily of Remington and Russell. And I'll talk more about that in a second. In 2006, we renovated the museum and we opened a gift shop in the front of the museum that you can see through the windows in this slide. And so we also just really opened up the front of the museum with these wonderful windows so people could see in and out. Unfortunately, during the pandemic, our gift shop has gone away, but we're now using that space as an introductory gallery, and we have a new installation in that space that we just debuted, or actually we're debuting today. And I'll show you that in just a moment. As I've said, Charles Marion Russell is one of the highlights of our collection. We have 52 Russells here at the Sid. And one of the great things about our collection is that really you can look at Russell's career comprehensively across from the early 1880s all the way to his death in the 1920s. So we have paintings that range from around 1883-85, as you can see in the painting that I'm showing here on the top, Western Scene, which is a painting made on a giant old plank of wood with house paints. So it's a really early commission of Russell's. And what you can really find in our collection is the evolution of someone who's really learning their craft as an artist all the way up into the 19-teens and early 20s with oil paintings that we have on view, and such as the one that I have below, Man's Weapons Are Useless When Nature Goes On. It's a classic Russell predicament painting. So you really get to see the kind of progression of this man as an artist over time and really see the evolution of his work through this collection. The other really major part of our collection is Frederic Remington. Sid owned 20 Remingtons by the time he passed away in 1959, and these are two of the works that were original to Sid's collection. And we have a wide range of Remingtons as well, from the 1880s all the way up to the last year of his life in 1909 with our masterwork from the collection, Buffalo Runner's Bighorn Basin. Since the museum opened in 1982, the foundation decided to add 4 extra works by Frederic Remington. And so we have these beautiful late Remingtons, and that's really a special feature of our collection. We have 10 paintings by Frederic Remington that were made between 1904 and 1909. So we really are a very special place to come see the late works of Frederic Remington. And they're really quite special because there are 5 of those brilliant daylight scenes like you see in the 3 works here. That's the dry camp at the upper left. On the right is Among the Led Horses. Below that is the Apaches, which is an earlier work, 1904. And then on the far right over there is the Love Call from 1909. And that's a painting that Remington wrote in his diary and said he painted in one day. But that's what's so special about these is we have these brilliant daylight scenes, 5 of them, and brilliant nocturnes from that late period. So it's a really special place to visit and see these late works by Remington. And I'll talk more about this as we go along, because we're going to feature them in an exhibition later this year. In addition to Remington and Russell, we do have a selection of other Western masters in the collection, such as Oscar Birninghouse's 49ers. That's a painting, one of the first paintings that Sid bought for his collection, as well as works by William Lee, Frank Teddy Johnson, Charles Schreibvogel, and we have a wonderful Peter Moran, which is quite rare to have. Among others, there's a few others. Now, Sid was a wildcatter and made his fortune in oils off and on from the 19-teens to the 1920s, and he also lost a lot of those fortunes. But in the mid-1930s, while drilling out in West Texas in the Keystone Field, he made his wealth in oil. And so that allowed him to pursue other passions, such as ranching. He owned this wonderful ranch down on San Jose Island that you see pictured here in the background of this portrait by Peter Hurd. And so ranching was one of his major passions, as well as art collecting. And so the collection that you see on the view here was really a collection that Sid lived with, and Sid showed as kind of the backdrop to the oil dealings that he had really on a national stage in the 1940s and 1950s. This is the San Jose Island Ranch House. This was built by architect O'Neill Ford. And I just like to show this just because I think we get distance from these things, and this is such a personal collection of Sid's that I like to just show off the fact that he lived with these paintings. And so you can see The Unknown Explorers by Remington there in the background on the sun porch, and that's a detail of it on the right. You can see this is a wonderful early Russell that we have in the collection, Seeking New Hunting Grounds, and hanging in one of the bedrooms at the ranch house. And then the Sentinel, which I showed before, hanging out also at the ranch house. In addition to that, he really was based here in Fort Worth, and his office was here at the old Fort Worth National Bank. And you can see in the upper left corner of the photo of Sid over there, just beyond the bust with the hat on, a corner of Utica. So Utica was seen in his office, as well as he lived at the Fort Worth Club here in downtown. So we know that he kept Frederic Remington's Paint on the Wind over the mantelpiece there at the Fort Worth Club. So I just want to talk at this point a little bit, I'll say more about the collection as I go through, but this is our current installation picturing the American West. And that's on view through August of this year. And the painting that you see here is kind of the centerpiece of that installation, Buffalo Bill's Duel with Yellow Hair. And that is a wonderful late 1919 Charlie Russell painting that we have in the collection. And we really are kind of using Buffalo Bill as a centerpiece of this installation, since he is the kind of the storyteller, myth maker that creates the Western theater that becomes the Western movies, that becomes the Western television. So it's just really kind of a great kind of a jumping off place to think about the kind of mythic qualities of Buffalo Bill in his life. We have a wonderful Pony Express painting hanging next to it by Tenny Johnson. And we also have that 49ers picture by Burninghouse. He claimed to be a Pony Express rider. He went out west on one of the gold rushes. So he's just a figure that's really bound up with the Western myth that we know so well. And the next slide shows you an installation view. This is kind of a thematic presentation that we have. It's a little different than we've shown the collection before, but the four themes are Western archetypes, where Buffalo Bill hangs, the bison and the Plains Indian, and that's the section you see right here. Twilight into Night is the section you see in the distance over there. So looking at these wonderful paintings that are kind of an allegory of the passing of the Old West, from the sundown pictures of Remington to the nocturnes, both by Remington and Tenny Johnson in our collection. And then the back gallery features cowboys and Native Americans. We have lots of those in the collection. And one of the special things about this installation is the wall that you see on the left in this photo. The painting on the left we saw earlier, Seeking New Hunting Grounds by Charlie Russell. That's an 1891 picture, and all four of those paintings feature the role of Plains Indian women in relation to moving camp during hunting season, but they range from 1891 all the way up to 1911. And so you really get to see the progression of Russell's work with this one theme on one wall. So it's a special opportunity to really kind of watch the evolution of Charlie Russell as a painter. And this is just a couple of other installation views. The slide on the right, of course, shows one of the great features of our collection, which is those nocturne paintings we were talking about, the 5 by Remington. And the center panel there is actually the Tenny Johnson picture. And the back gallery is the Cowboys and Native Americans installation. Today, we're actually opening a new exhibit, Saddles on Parade, the artistry of Edward Bolin. Because strangely, if anybody knows the history of Fort Worth and they know much about us, they know Amon Carter, and they know that Sid and Amon were rival collectors in the 1930s and 40s. And they were actually very close friends. And the saddle that you see on the far right in the installation in our front gallery is actually a gift that was given by Amon to Sid in 1947. He was a stock show director, and you can actually see Sid on the far right in that photo that we have on the wall there. That's Sid, and he's shown with the stock show president, vice president, and director. They were all presented these wonderful parade saddles in 1947 that were created by the Hollywood saddle maker, Edward Boland. And so it's a really special piece in our collection, something people really love about our collection. So we're trying to highlight a little bit more about the story, our connections to the stock show, and of course, very specifically, these are the two saddles that we have in the collection. These were both gifts by Eamon to Sid over time. And so you can see the saddle in full gear that came with it in the slide on the left with the black and silver saddle and chaps and vest. We also have gloves there on view right now. And then on the right, we have this beautiful lady saddle. It's a brown with silver and gold overlays. And so it's an incredibly special object. A saddle that, if we believe the person that sold it to Eamon Carter was actually Edward Boland's wife's saddle. So it's another special piece and just a beautiful display of the artistry and the leather working in silver. And of course, our goal also is to really connect ourselves to the stock show and the history of the parade, which is the largest non-motorized parade in the world. That's coming up tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock right here on the streets outside the doors of the museum. We're located right on Main Street. The parade goes up and down Main and Houston down here. And actually, we're seeing an image of Houston Street here with the stock show president, vice president, and director again, using their parade saddles as intended. So it's really quite wonderful. And there's other memorabilia that tells more about the relationship of Sid and Eamon on view in a couple of casework that we have in the gallery. So it's a special opportunity to learn a little bit more about Sid and relationships, and really the importance of both Sid and Eamon in their efforts to promote Fort Worth and Texas throughout their lives. Our next exhibition opens in late September of 2022. And we're titling that exhibition Night and Day, Frederic Remington's Final Decade. And so because we have that wonderful collection of 10 works that feature night and day so prominently, we're actually borrowing about 10 more. So we'll have about 20 paintings that will be an opportunity for us to examine this narrowing of palette that Remington does in that last decade when he's really working very closely with his Impressionist colleagues in New York. He's really changing the way he paints. The paint surfaces becoming much more impressionistic in terms of its touch, and much more tonalistic in terms of the way that he's approaching each of these different subjects, and also the kind of mood that these create. So the day scenes often are these very urgent scenes like you see in the Apaches, and then these much more quiet, more subdued evening nocturnes, such as the Belated Traveler on the right. And one of the special things and things that people, I don't think, always remember about Remington is he was really his own worst critic. He was constantly at the very last 10 years of his work trying to move the dial away from him being thought of as a mere illustrator and being thought of more as a fine artist. And in his effort to do this, he actually destroyed around 100 works, maybe even more. We don't know completely. But what's really fascinating is that he wrote in his diary in 1907 and 1908 that in 1907 he destroyed 75 paintings in a fire, and 1908 he did the same in February. And he actually wrote a ledger about the 1908 bonfire, and he told everybody exactly what he destroyed. And then on some of these paintings he actually wrote redone 1908. So he revisited compositions at times, and this is one we're going to bring together. This is actually one of the Collier's reproductions that was used in the magazine, an early start to market, and that's a painting that he burned in 1908, and then he had redone a new version of that in 1906. So it's a 1905 painting. He revisited in 1906, wasn't happy with that first composition and didn't want it to survive and got rid of it. And that's the same, this is really the genesis of this exhibition is our painting, The Unknown Explorers. So he had created a first version of that in 1905, and it was actually displayed as the masthead for Collier's. So when we show this, when you'll see Collier's Weekly at the top. And so it'll be interesting to really think about what is he trying to reframe in these late pictures? What is he really thinking about whenever he's changing these compositions and really limiting his color palette in these very late pictures? In this very green and blue and yellow composition color palettes that he's creating in these very late works, and narrowing down to these more squared color palettes that we see here as well. And of course, the other phone in my office is going to ring now. Sorry about that. So that exhibition we're pulling together right now, and we're very excited that that'll round out our year this year. I just wanted to mention too, we have a number of education programs that we do for families, of course, for students in the galleries, as well as virtually right now. And then also we have our own trivia program, just as y'all were doing trivia earlier. We do a program called Wild West Wits. We do a book club program and a number of lectures, and we're working at trying to find ways now to create those as both virtual offerings and as we come back to in-person offerings. So I hope you'll, wherever you're at, you'll look to us to be able to participate in the programs that we offer here at the SID. And also just to tell you, we do have a wonderful opportunity for anybody that's anywhere out there. You can go into our gallery, walk around, see all the labels, read everything, see better up close versions of the collection through our Gallery 360 tour. So I encourage you to visit the SID virtually, and I also very much encourage you to visit the SID in person. We'd love to have you down here in Fort Worth. And with that, if y'all have any questions or anything else I can tell you, I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Scott. Fascinating. Can you imagine a bonfire where the artist is throwing 75 pieces of his work? Oh my, what a tragedy. Scott, we always do ask our guests for some basics. When is the museum open? And we always ask what it costs. But what I've learned from you is that admission is free. But
admission is always free, yes. So we welcome you in anytime. Right now we're open 10 to 4, and we're open Monday through Saturday. And we're hoping to return to Sundays soon. We lost one of our part-time staff, and we've been kind of gradually building back since we reopened this last June. But yeah, we ask for people to make reservations in advance, but we're happy to accommodate people at the door. So if you just show up in downtown and you want to come see the collection, we will get you in.
I appreciate that. And we invite anyone to post a question in the chat or unmute and ask a question. Scott, are you ever asked is there a dollar and cents value to these works? They seem priceless, but I look at those parade saddles. I mean, what it would cost to produce a parade saddle like that today is unimaginable to me.
Oh, yeah, well, we try not to talk about value in relation to the collections with the public, but I can tell you that Eamon paid $3,600 for each of those black and silver parade saddles. Those were, he wrote, stipulated in the letter that he wrote to Edward Boland that they be made just the same as the ones that you made for the King of Saudi Arabia. So it's a pretty special group of saddles there, but yeah, $3,600. And that was I think that was kind of the standard price in the mid 1940s for those elaborate saddles. But it is really easy to look at any auction information online and see what a Boland saddle goes for today. And it's a lot more than $3,600.
Oh my, man. Goodness.
But they're beautiful though.
They certainly are. Let's see, are there questions for Scott? See, I see plaudits for you in the chat. Any questions for Scott? Are you still, Scott, looking for additional acquisitions?
No, I think the collection is kind of as it is, I think. I think, with 24 Remingtons and 52 Russells, I think the initial idea was to kind of balance it out a little bit. We can tell that Sid's preference was for Russell in the end. And so we have 18 works on paper by Russell. We only have one letter in the collection. And then the rest are all oil paintings. But I think the effort was to kind of balance it out a little bit, like I say. And I don't really think there's a lot of interest in continued collecting. that's really why we try to do exhibition work to kind of enhance and show different aspects of these artists and different ways of framing and looking at the West.
Maybe 10, 15 years ago, up in Denver, there was a great retrospective on both Charlie Russell and Remington. And I wondered if you shared any of your paintings with that retrospective.
I don't recall. I don't think we had any loans in the big show. I can't remember exactly. I apologize. There are some works associated with us that we've had access to that we have loaned, but I know that the Remington exhibition that was held both at Denver and the National Gallery, there were 2 paintings that were part of that exhibition from the Sid Richardson collection.
It was an amazing show. Absolutely amazing.
The Color of Night exhibition, yes. So, and that's already been 20 years. Next year in 2023, it'll be 20 years since that show.
Scott, there is a question in the chat about the gift shop. Will it reopen? And are there copies of prints? Is it possible to get copies of these?
There are a lot out there, and some of the other museums, like the Cowboy and the C.M. Russell Museum, has access to some of those things, so people can purchase them through there right now. There's no plan at present, though, to reopen the store, and we're kind of really rethinking that front space for education opportunities and for really enhancing the way we tell the story of the collection right now.
And with 2022 being the 40th year of the museum, right? So you have special exhibits planned, the exhibit opening this fall in celebration. Is that the primary element of your 40-year anniversary?
Yes, it is right now. I mean, given everything continuing as strangely as it is, it's really hard to plan forward for in-person events still. So we're kind of playing it by ear, and we'll see how things go as we move to the fall to see if there's other special events we can have.
I'm told something like 1 million people show up at the stock show in the course of its run, which is unimaginable to me. So Fort Worth will be busy this upcoming month.
We noticed an uptick in people on the streets yesterday. So yeah, a lot of people are downtown right now, staying here while they're getting ready for the opening, which is today, tomorrow. So yeah, no, it gets very busy between here and the cultural district. And so yeah, but we're a little outside the bounds of where the stock show is down here.
Well, I appreciate you sharing what your predecessor, was it Mary Burke,
Yes.
did on the history of the Chisholm Trail. And I appreciate you sharing that huge mural in Sundance Square, just around the corner from you guys. That's one of my favorite sites. That mural, I think it's something like 3 stories high, shows the cattle drive and has the Chisholm Trail in big letters across the bottom. So it's something that really connects with our group and with your location. It's just perfect.
Yeah.
Along a trail city.
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's great to be right here off the plaza. I try to just reinforce that all the time because a lot of people don't know we're down here. And so I love to just remind people we're steps away from Sundance Plaza and steps away from that mural.
Well, outstanding works of art and outstanding work that you're doing in terms of education and outreach. And I know that art education is a real passion of yours. And we appreciate the work you're doing to serve the community and raise awareness and appreciation among those folks.
Well, thank you for having us. And I hope everyone will come down and see us sometime.
We look forward to that.
All right.
Thank you. How about a virtual round of applause for Scott Winterode and the great work they're doing there at the Sid Richardson Museum. So thanks everyone for your participation today. Our next Cattle Trail Showcase will be Friday, February 11, second Friday of each month. So Friday, February 11 at 10 a.m. Please join us. This time, as you know, we're rotating between states. We'll be zooming to the Chisholm Trail Museum in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. So we sure hope you can join us. To close our program today, this is Ron Wilson, Poet Laureate, saying thank you for taking time to join us in this place, and come on back next month for our Cattle Trails Showcase. Happy trails, everybody.